SCP-6004, the Rainbow Serpent. SCP entities often fall into distinct categories. One type includes smaller, yet dangerous entities that pose a threat to individuals or small groups, usually manageable by the Foundation's containment measures. On the other end of the spectrum are the catastrophic threats, eldritch horrors, and incomprehensible anomalies with the potential to end humanity, often residing just beyond the edges of our reality. However, there are some creatures that don't fit neatly into these categories, existing somewhere in the middle. SCP-6004 can best be described as a kaiju, a massive creature reminiscent of Godzilla or Ghidorah, though possibly even bigger and more devastating. What makes it even more concerning is its specific purpose behind the destruction it causes, a motive that the Foundation must seriously consider as they prepare to confront it in battle. Let's take a closer look. SCP-6004 is classified as Uncontainables/Tiamat, indicating that containing it would require actions that would expose the existence of anomalies to the public, breaking the veil of secrecy. The containment procedures elaborate on this, noting that despite all efforts, SCP-6004 cannot be contained with the current resources. Containment may only be possible if significantly more advanced measures are developed, or if SCP-6004 naturally returns to a dormant state. Therefore, the current strategy focuses on preparing for such an eventuality and reducing the damage caused by its active state. SCP-6004 is an enormous serpent-like creature with a length that ranges from 200 meters to 1,900 kilometers, its mass scaling proportionally with its length. Its physical appearance changes, mimicking different Australian snakes, but it consistently exhibits a primarily black coloration adorned with dull, prismatic stripes running along its body and a pale underbelly. Additionally, it has a pair of horns and an unusually large number of teeth, far exceeding what is biologically possible in normal snakes. The horns are intricately engraved with thousands of depictions of wildlife. SCP-6004 is capable of moving at incredibly high speeds, often surpassing 1,200 kilometers per hour on land, and more than doubling that speed when underwater. This rapid movement causes significant disruptions, such as large rifts in the earth and massive tsunamis, along with creating powerful sonic booms both above and below water. The entity also demonstrates immense strength and resilience, far exceeding what its size would suggest, allowing it to demolish mountains, propel itself into the upper atmosphere, and deliver a bite powerful enough to crush the Foundation's mech units. Additionally, SCP-6004 can maneuver through the air in a way that resembles swimming. By remaining conscious, SCP-6004 can manipulate global weather patterns and atmospheric conditions at will, usually causing a slight cooling of the Earth's average temperature by 2 degrees Celsius. The intensity of this effect varies, leading to increased snowfall in polar and glacial regions, heightened rainfall in deserts, and the development of severe thunderstorms worldwide. SCP-6004 often uses this ability in a threatening manner by creating hazardous weather conditions within its line of sight, typically in reaction to external stimuli or its presumed emotional state. This usually manifests as severe thunderstorms, hurricanes, torrential downpours, and the creation of enormous waves. SCP-6004 primarily uses its weather-manipulating ability as a weapon, often targeting cities, mines, and power plants with destructive weather before launching a physical attack. The rain it generates has been noted to spontaneously produce plant life within the affected area, which then grows at an accelerated pace and, in some cases, exhibits hostility towards humans. Additionally, SCP-6004 appears to have a unique ability to selectively interact with its environment, causing destruction to specific structures while leaving others intact during its attacks. This selective tangibility extends to its consumption habits, as it seems capable of ingesting organic material, primarily animals, while deliberately avoiding the consumption of soil or buildings. When attacking populated areas, SCP-6004 has been observed to consume living humans and later regurgitate various forms of local wildlife. In essence, SCP-6004 is an enormous serpent capable of unleashing devastating weather phenomena. with a clear antagonism towards human civilization and life. The rainbow serpent, a figure deeply rooted in Australian Aboriginal mythology, is often seen as a creator deity. It is known to be a life-giver, but also possesses a destructive side when provoked, capable of unleashing thunder and lightning. In this context, it appears that the rainbow serpent has indeed been provoked. Site director Alan Tibbles provided some insight into the situation, mentioning that before SCP-6004 was discovered in March 2020, there was considerable debate within the Foundation about the extent to which they should contribute humanitarian aid during the 2019-2020 Australian bushfires. Although the bushfires weren't directly their responsibility, the instinct to assist, particularly for those at the Australian sites who were close to home, was strong. However, resources at Site 40 were stretched too thin, limiting their ability to offer more than minimal support to firefighters and rescue teams. This was compounded by the growing concern over unusual seismic activity occurring across Australia, which they suspected had an anomalous origin. While internal communications and emails were exchanged to address the issue, the fires made it difficult to conduct thorough investigations. The decision was made to wait until the situation stabilized before resuming their efforts, a choice they now realize was a critical error. Tibbles reflects on the situation, emphasizing the need for the Foundation to take decisive action, rather than being hindered by the ineffective decisions of the non-anomalous world. He believes that if they had been more proactive, they wouldn't be facing their current predicament. The story begins in December 1988, when unusual seismic activity was first detected across mainland Australia, particularly around the eastern coast of New South Wales. At the time, these disturbances were not considered to be of anomalous origin and were therefore largely ignored. However, over the years, the frequency and intensity of this seismic activity increased significantly. By 2019, it became clear that a thorough investigation was necessary, leading to the deployment of investigators from Site 40. Their research indicated that the epicenter of the activity was within Wollemi National Park, a vast wilderness area spanning approximately 500,000 hectares between the Blue Mountains. Unfortunately, these investigations were interrupted by severe wildfires affecting the region. As a result, further exploration was postponed until the fires could be brought under control. As conditions continued to deteriorate, seismic activity in the area became significantly more intense. During this period, firefighter Mark Delaney was reported to have disregarded orders in an effort to save a distressed civilian who had fled into hazardous terrain within the national park. This incident ultimately led to the emergence of SCP-6004 from a hidden underground cavern. Following the event, a Foundation investigation uncovered Delaney's remains, trapped beneath a large, granite boulder near the entrance to a now collapsed subterranean chamber, amidst signs of rock slides and the entity's awakening. A helmet-mounted video camera was found with Delaney's body, documenting the moments leading up to the appearance of SCP-6004. In the footage, Delaney is seen working alongside other firefighters, struggling to contain the blaze under low visibility conditions. He radios for assistance in retrieving a ladder when a woman suddenly appears, running towards the flames. Delaney shouts for her to stop, but she seems unable to hear him. Driven by panic, she disappears into the forest, with Delaney immediately pursuing her. Another firefighter can be faintly heard calling after him, urging him to stop. As Delaney enters the smoke-filled woodland, the woman is heard shouting for someone named Jamie. Despite the thick smoke and falling embers obscuring the camera's view, Delaney continues his pursuit, swearing intermittently as he stumbles but regains his footing, chasing her for another minute and a half before they reach a clearing at the edge of a ravine. Beyond the ravine, the camera captures a scene of intense flames consuming the wilderness, with the woman crouching in fear near the edge. Delaney rushes over to her, attempting to calm her down, but she remains in a state of shock, unable to respond to his questions. He lifts her out of the camera's view and starts to carry her away, but as he does, the camera tilts downward, revealing a massive reptilian form partially visible through a crack in the ground. As the creature shifts, the ground trembles again, causing Delaney to lose his balance momentarily. On the opposite side of the ravine, a rocky ledge cracks and begins to collapse, sending burning trees tumbling onto the creature's scaled surface. The creature reacts to the falling debris, recoiling as the tremors intensify. A deafening roar suddenly echoes through the area, cutting off the audio from the recording. The creature begins to retreat back into the earth, and the camera swings upward, capturing flashes of lightning through the smoke as rain starts to pour down. The tremors grow even more violent, and the camera shifts back to the ravine, where an enormous mass breaks through the surface, displacing a vast amount of rock and soil. Upon closer analysis, the footage reveals this mass to be the head of SCP-6004, engulfed in flames and emitting a fierce roar. Delaney and the woman are thrown backward by the force, with the camera now facing skyward. The giant serpent is seen ascending into the air before vanishing into the smoky atmosphere. Heavy rain begins to pour, gradually extinguishing the flames in the scene. After the serpent's appearance, intense thunderstorms quickly developed over regions impacted by the bushfires, effectively extinguishing them by mid-March. As the Foundation began to monitor the serpent's movements, they observed that areas hit by these storms started to experience unusually fast plant growth. Additionally, weather agencies, both within the Foundation and external, reported a noticeable reversal in global warming patterns. At first, the serpent remained airborne, encircled by these expanding thunderstorms, which gradually spread further from its initial point of emergence. Foundation analysts soon discovered that the abnormal rainfall was predominantly occurring over regions suffering from desertification and deforestation. In the early stages of its activity within Australia, these storms engulfed vast areas, including farmland, forests, residential zones, and urban centers. This led to widespread property damage, as large trees grew rapidly, uprooting and displacing buildings and other structures. Several Foundation sites were activated to assist in search, rescue, and relocation operations for those impacted, with additional support coming from the Global Occult Coalition. Despite their efforts, the Foundation's attempts to neutralize the serpent, identified as the likely source of the destruction, proved unsuccessful. These operations were often met with aggressive responses from the creature, including lightning strikes and bites. It was during one such failed attempt that the serpent was first recorded attacking a populated area. On March 27th, approximately 6 weeks after its initial manifestation, the serpent launched a direct assault on the city of Canberra. At 10:47 a.m., powerful thunderstorms formed over the city, bringing wind speeds exceeding 140 kilometers per hour. Shortly after, the serpent emerged from the clouds and descended onto the city, its size and mass unknown, but evidently immense. The creature then began striking and biting the ground throughout the city, consuming vast amounts of infrastructure and residents. In a particularly focused attack, it targeted Parliament House, hurling much of the structure and its occupants skyward with incredible force. Some debris and individuals were later observed in orbit around Earth. This assault triggered a response from several Foundation mobile task forces, including ETA-5 Jaeger bombers and Tau-5 Samsara. However, by the time they arrived, the serpent had already left, leaving 74% of the city in ruins and 197,000 people unaccounted for. No remains were discovered, and the survivors were subjected to mass amnesticization under the pretense of an asteroid impact. Despite ongoing efforts by both the Foundation and the Global Occult Coalition to neutralize, divert, or contain the serpent, it persisted in its attacks on human settlements, primarily focusing on cities, mines, highly polluted areas, and coal power plants. In each of these incidents, the majority of the area's population was consumed by the serpent. Surveillance footage that survived the attacks showed the serpent displaying a dual state, appearing both tangible and intangible, as it phased through structures that seemed to be intentionally spared. After each attack, the serpent was consistently observed retreating to isolated locations where it would regurgitate the consumed materials. Subsequent investigations of these locations revealed significant increases in wildlife populations and enhanced soil fertility, where the serpent had expelled its contents. Given the extent of the destruction, survivors were relocated to safer zones within areas that had previously been attacked. The widespread damage to power grids necessitated the implementation of temporary energy sources on a large scale, with many turning to solar power as a solution. During the resettlement process, numerous survivors and Foundation personnel observed a notable increase in native wildlife populations, which surprisingly did not hinder the resettlement efforts. By late February, a temporary truce was established between the Foundation, the Global Occult Coalition, Marshall Carter and Dark, and a significant faction of the Church of the Broken God. The goal was to collaborate on finding a way to control and contain the Serpent. A think tank was formed, bringing together experts from all four groups to develop a working theory on the nature of SCP-6004. During these discussions, each group independently identified significant parallels between SCP-6004 and the Rainbow Serpent from Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime stories. To explore potential containment methods for the entity, research was conducted into all accessible folklore, along with consultations with knowledgeable external individuals. The aim was to uncover a ritual or other means of intervening in the entity's actions. To explore potential containment methods for the entity, research was conducted into all accessible folklore, along with consultations with knowledgeable external individuals. The aim was to uncover a ritual or other means of intervening in the entity's actions. After Sydney's devastation, a team from Site-40 was dispatched to investigate and gather any possible information about SCP-6004 and its impact on the affected regions. As Sydney was the first major city to be obliterated, the team hoped to uncover crucial insights. They were directed to begin their investigation in northern Sydney and proceed to Rushcutters Bay, as this area had suffered particularly severe destruction. The team received orders to identify and document any unusual occurrences resulting from the Serpent's attack, and to mark the locations of survivors with flares to assist Foundation rescue teams. A video transcript from Captain John Vercoe's body camera provides insight into their mission as they navigate on foot through Sydney's city centre. The area is heavily impacted, with significant damage to structures due to the sudden growth of plant life, particularly large eucalyptus trees, and evidence of major impact events. Rain falls steadily, punctuated by occasional lightning flashes. One agent uses a chainsaw to clear fallen trees from their path. As they progress, they observe several koalas in the treetops, noting that these animals were not native to this urban environment. Wildlife is seen regularly as the team moves forward, with most animals keeping their distance, except for several snakes that lift their heads to watch the team as they pass by. The team suddenly notices a large shape moving behind some thick vegetation. To get a better look, they throw a stone in its direction. There's a dull thud, followed by a deep, rumbling grunt as the creature starts moving toward them, prompting the team to take cover. Emerging from the bushes is a large, brown-furred quadruped, standing around 2 meters tall, snorting and grunting as it steps into the clearing and surveys the area. One of the team members wonders aloud if it might be a giant wombat, but Command has no information on it. A researcher suggests that it resembles reconstructions of Diprotodon, an extinct species of giant wombat. The creature begins to act aggressively, snorting, tossing its head, and pawing at the ground as it approaches one of the agents. The agent, weapon drawn, begins to back away, but the creature continues to follow him closely. The captain instructs the agent to slowly back away and to stop shouting, which he does. The animal halts its approach, lets out a roar, then snorts before settling down to graze on some grass and eventually retreating back into the bushes. Deciding it's best not to linger in case the Serpent returns, the team presses on toward Rushcutters Bay. As they proceed, they arrive at the edge of a massive crater left by one of the Serpent's strikes. Within the crater, trees and vines are visibly growing at an accelerated rate, while kangaroos forage among the new growth. One team member wonders aloud just how enormous the Serpent must be to cause such devastation. The captain explains that the creature's size can vary, ranging from 400 meters to over 1,000 kilometers in length. Vercoe then informs Command that they will need to take a detour around the crater, with Command advising that they've detected movement in the surrounding trees and buildings. The team continues along the edge of the crater until they reach a partially collapsed apartment block teetering on the brink. Nearby, a group of unusually large kangaroos, standing about 2.5 meters tall, are grazing and eyeing the team cautiously. Deciding not to engage, the team carefully skirts around them. A researcher at Command identifies these creatures as the extinct short-faced kangaroo. As they proceed, one of the agents notices a sizable animal emerging from a hole in the wall of the apartment building. Its eyes catch the light, reflecting back at the camera. The team quickly takes cover and readies their weapons as the creature slowly climbs down the side of the building, making its way toward the kangaroos. One of the team members comments that it resembles a creature from Canada, referencing SCP-4715. The researcher corrects them, identifying it as a marsupial lion, a formidable predator. The lion leaps from the building, landing on the back of one of the large kangaroos, biting down on its neck. The other kangaroos immediately scatter, fleeing into the surrounding trees, while the lion finishes off its prey and drags the carcass back up the side of the building. Two smaller marsupial lions appear at the edge of the hole from which the larger one emerged, vocalizing loudly. The rest of the team provides cover as the captain approaches to retrieve the severed head of the kangaroo. As he picks it up and prepares to place it into a containment pouch, one of the team members notices something unusual. The brow ridge of the short-faced kangaroo's head is marked with a tattoo, bearing the words, "Live, Laugh, Love," alongside a stylized human skull. The recording ends at this point, and upon reviewing the footage, the tattoos were identified as matching those of John Baring, a tattoo artist whose body was never found after the Serpent's assault on Sydney. This discovery has led to the conclusion that all the animals appearing in the aftermath of SCP-6004's attacks are actually humans who have been transformed into wildlife by the entity before being expelled. In summary, the Serpent is not only wreaking havoc across Australia, but is also consuming people by the thousands and turning them into various animal forms. This development makes it exceedingly difficult for the Foundation to maintain secrecy. In response to these events, on June 5th, Site Director Alan Tibbles issued another statement, which reads, "Things haven't gone well. From the total loss of Australia, the discovery that it's eating us and vomiting us up as animals, and the veil of secrecy being annihilated, it has been a bad few months. I know many of you don't believe that we can turn this around, but you're wrong. The Foundation has always managed to tip the scales back to our favor. Time and again we have contained the uncontainable and recontained it when it escaped. We have saved humanity time and again from extinction. We have handled the whims of mad gods and bent the will of world governments. We have restarted the world a time or two. So I say this, we will rebuild what this snake has destroyed. We will find its weakness, and we will lock it away. We will begin again, using anomalous means until we're back on our feet. And when the work is done, we will help the world to forget the horror that we have faced these past few months. But right now, the big job is still ahead of us. We are continuing to build upon our weapons and containment experiments. We are learning more every day about SCP-6004, and we are getting closer to the answers we need. I just need you to dig deep and do our part in bringing this thing down. Yes, it has shrugged off all our efforts thus far, and yes, it is attacking settlements on a near global scale now. But now, the veil is down. We don't have to pull our punches anymore. We can throw all we have at it. We can take what we have learned in this document, forge it into a weapon, and use it to win. It appears that the Serpent has now expanded its range beyond Australia, launching attacks across the globe. This is clearly a dire situation, but with the veil of secrecy lifted, the Foundation can now fully engage SCP-6004 without the constraints of maintaining cover. In the aftermath of Sydney's destruction, SCP-6004 didn't just target other major Australian cities. It also spread its assaults to regions in Asia, Europe, Africa, and even Antarctica, displaying the same level of aggression. Despite the Foundation and the global occult coalition making countless attempts to halt, incapacitate, neutralize, or contain the entity using various methods, including mechs, L-guns, high-energy orbital railguns, and Class Sigma autocannons, SCP-6004 continued its relentless attacks on human settlements, showing no signs of being deterred. The estimated death toll from SCP-6004's rampage is believed to be in the billions. Its global impact has led to a decrease in average temperatures by 0.7 degrees Celsius, the restoration of glacial and polar ice, and the refilling of depleted lakes and rivers. Deforestation has been largely reversed, and many species once considered endangered or extinct are now thriving again. It's believed that more than 40% of the world's urban areas have been rendered uninhabitable due to SCP-6004's influence, prompting a massive effort to relocate affected populations. As the Serpent has targeted dams, coal-fired power plants, and major cities, numerous temporary solar power installations and nuclear plants have been established worldwide to meet the growing energy demands. Both the Foundation and the GOC have also turned to anomalous methods to produce food, ensuring that refugees receive necessary supplies. Managing governments around the world has become a critical task, as many countries have attempted to mount military defenses against SCP-6004. The GOC has offered to leverage its UN connections to coordinate efforts, emphasizing that the global focus should be on rescuing and sheltering citizens rather than on military actions, which have so far been not only ineffective, but in some cases, counterproductive. In the initial weeks following SCP-6004's emergence, the Foundation managed to suppress media coverage to some extent, though it was an exceptionally challenging task. However, as the Serpent's attacks spread over larger areas, it became impossible to keep its existence hidden. At this point, the Foundation has accepted that the veil of secrecy is irreparably broken, and efforts to conceal SCP-6004's presence or its effects have been abandoned, as they are now seen as a misuse of resources. There is some hope that the reduced global population could make widespread amnesticization feasible if SCP-6004 is ever contained or neutralized. This is a bleak situation, to say the least. The Serpent's activity has been widespread, and we're provided with a summary of locations across the globe where it has either attacked or left its mark. While this list is abridged, it is clear that SCP-6004 has been extraordinarily active. In Canberra, Australia, SCP-6004 descended upon the city with brutal force, striking it with its massive jaws while accompanied by hurricane-level winds and severe thunderstorms. Death toll reached close to 200,000, with Parliament House being a specific target, a pattern that has been observed in subsequent assaults on capital cities. In Sydney, SCP-6004 largely remained concealed within the clouds, occasionally descending to strike the ground, while tsunamis engulfed the city. The devastation resulted in the loss of over 3 million lives. The Serpent targeted key locations, specifically the headquarters of major mining and oil companies, as well as the Rushcutters Bay area, where temperate forests quickly took root following the attack. In Hong Kong, after enduring several days of intense storms and monsoons, the Serpent launched a direct assault. It thrashed its tail into the sea, generating colossal waves that battered Hong Kong Island before the creature landed its entire body between Hong Kong Island and Kowloon. The attack led to over 6 million casualties, with some waves reportedly reaching heights of over 200 meters. Despite the extensive destruction, several skyscrapers remained standing. Meanwhile, in the Aral Sea region, spanning Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, persistent rainstorms over 9 months gradually refilled the sea. The same storms, coupled with lightning strikes, damaged much of the Soviet-era irrigation systems that had drained the sea, allowing water to flow back along its pre-Soviet routes. Additionally, a continuous rainstorm now hovers over the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, where plastics and other debris exposed to the anomalous rain have been observed transforming into various marine life forms, including fish, cetaceans, coral polyps, jellyfish, and other creatures whose nature remains classified. The Serpent launched another devastating assault on the Three Gorges Dam in China, completely obliterating the structure. This destruction unleashed 37 billion cubic meters of water down the Yangtze River, leading to widespread flooding across 6 provinces. The flooding ravaged multiple cities and additional dams, culminating in a staggering death toll exceeding 400 million. In Taiwan, the Serpent targeted a coal-fired power plant, directing a series of lightning strikes at the facility. These strikes triggered several steam explosions, with the precision suggesting that SCP-6004s may possess an understanding of the plant's operations through unknown means. Meanwhile, atop Mount Kenya, the 11 glaciers began to expand rapidly following the Serpent's awakening, with projections indicating that they could return to their pre-1890 sizes by 2030. In Russia, the Serpent attacked a nuclear processing plant, consuming various structures, including disused nuclear reactors and waste storage tanks. The associated thunderstorms sparked rapid plant growth, and subsequent Foundation investigations revealed a significant reduction in nuclear contamination in the area after the Serpent's intervention. In the Sahel region of North Africa, prolonged rainstorms blanketed the area, leading to rapid and unusual plant growth along with significant soil regeneration. The Serpent directly targeted several communities, consuming and transforming close to 1 million people into various forms of wildlife. Consequently, an expansive area of 650,000 square kilometers that had been heavily impacted by desertification was restored to semi-tropical forests and bushlands. Similarly, the Congo Basin in Central Africa underwent massive reforestation due to the Serpent-induced rainstorms. Numerous settlements, previously located within forested areas, were attacked, with over 48 million people being transfigured into wildlife. The area, covering 148,000 square kilometers, was transformed into a rainforest, now teeming with numerous endangered and once extinct species in large numbers. In eastern Australia, the Serpent targeted grazing lands over several weeks, devouring more than 70 million livestock animals. The subsequent rainstorms spurred the growth of native plant life, transforming the landscape into temperate forests. The wildlife reintroduced to this area mainly consisted of previously extinct species, drastically altering the local ecosystem. The emergence of numerous carnivorous megafauna in the region has made it unlikely that the area will be resettled in the future. The Serpent traveled over large portions of Antarctica, leading to significant increases in snowfall and more frequent auroras over the southern pole. This enhanced snowfall contributed to the restoration of approximately 3 trillion tons of ice. Additionally, the Serpent was observed circling Mount Sidley, a dormant volcano, for 19 days. The reason for this prolonged activity remains unclear, even after Foundation investigations. In the Republic of Angola, the Serpent attacked an offshore oil platform by dragging it beneath the sea and repeatedly smashing it against the ocean floor. Over the ensuing months, the remnants of the structure transformed into a coral reef. It's believed that the intense pressure from the Serpent's body effectively sealed the oil well. In Papua New Guinea, the Serpent's presence brought rainstorms over an open-pit mine and surrounding areas, though these rains did not stimulate plant growth. Instead, they cleansed the soil of contaminants left by mining operations. The Serpent then moved through a nearby river, consuming much of the polluted riverbed before resurfacing to fill in the mine with surrounding earth. Following the Serpent's departure, the rainforest regenerated in the affected area, and pollution levels in nearby rivers dropped to nearly zero. In Italy, severe thunderstorms developed over a landfill, and the resulting rain transformed much of the waste into fungi, trees, and insects. A significant portion of the debris was also converted into wasps and bees, leading to a substantial boost in natural pollination across the region. In India, the Serpent entered the Ganges Delta through the Bay of Bengal, attacking several settlements before slowly making its way up the river over 24 days. During this time, it was seen with its mouth open, its lower jaw scraping the riverbed and swallowing everything in its path, effectively filling the entire river with its massive body. The Serpent repeatedly assaulted structures and communities along the riverbanks, leading to the destruction of multiple dams and causing the deaths of over 250 million people. Interestingly, the Serpent spared an organization focused on the conservation and cleanup of the Ganges River. Despite numerous attempts by military forces to intercept and attack the creature, they were either ignored or obliterated. After the Serpent moved on, the Ganges River was found to be exceptionally clean and thriving with fish and dolphins. In Tanzania, rainfall affected a wilderness region, similar to other areas impacted by the Serpent, but also brought significant changes to the local wildlife. Animals that had been killed by human activities such as poaching and trophy hunting were observed to regenerate, sometimes multiple times. Following this resurgence, there was a marked increase in aggressive behavior towards humans, with numerous daily reports of attacks by lions, leopards, hyenas, and elephants. When SCP-6004 awoke, glaciers in the Himalayan mountain range began to expand, and rainfall in the region brought forests back to areas that had suffered from deforestation. Several settlements were overtaken by wildlife exhibiting similar aggression and regenerative traits as those seen in Tanzania, Siberia, and the Ganges, resulting in a loss of 28 million lives. Interestingly, there were also numerous reports of SCP-1000 sightings in the area. In Indonesia, thunderstorms formed over palm oil plantations, prompting rapid growth of native vegetation across an area of over 280,000 hectares. This vegetation actively strangled the oil palms, and SCP-6004 was observed attacking the facilities from the air, consuming them. The Serpent frequently returned to these areas to regurgitate individuals it had consumed, who were transformed into native wildlife. Following the destruction of the Three Gorges Dam in China, Foundation operatives embedded within the Chinese government reported significant unrest within the ruling party. Military assets that weren't affected by the floods were rapidly mobilized under the pretext of preparedness. Despite efforts by the Foundation to intervene, a large portion of China's military resources, including at least 80 nuclear weapons, were moved to Beijing. Diplomatic efforts by the Foundation and GOC to dissuade the Chinese Communist Party from engaging SCP-6004, citing the disastrous results of India's military actions during the Ganges attacks, were ultimately unsuccessful. Diplomats were eventually excluded from further discussions with the Chinese government. Several agents embedded within the party continued to provide intelligence to the Foundation and the global occult coalition. Given the challenges of further negotiations with China, the decision was made to focus on containing SCP-6004 and advancing the development of Project Mongoose. It became clear that this unstoppable force had begun a worldwide rampage against humanity, and the race was on to find a way to stop it. Attempting to keep such a cataclysmic event under wraps was always going to be an impossible task, and the Foundation's standard protocol in these scenarios is to eliminate the threat and restore normalcy by any means necessary. However, the real question remains: what if they can't neutralize SCP-6004? With the situation growing increasingly dire, the deployment of nuclear weapons seems increasingly likely. The success of the Foundation's Project Mongoose will be critical, and while it's uncertain if it will be as effective as they hope, it's clear that they're preparing for the worst.